The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio. What's up, nerds? ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker, you can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. And the breaking news, is it still breaking? I guess it broke a couple hours ago. But Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski, who's done a fantastic job this year, and two additional members of the coaching staff of the Cleveland Browns have tested positive for COVID-19 and will not be available for the AFC wildcard game against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday night if the game remains as scheduled. Two players to test positive are wide receiver Hodge and Pro Bowl guard Bitonio. Max Kellerman Show presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests join me on the Goodyear hotline. Last year it was a different hotline, but 2020 was a bad year. This is a good year, 2021. But first it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. And I wanted to get into what Joe Judge said yesterday, but I got to talk about the Cleveland Browns right now. Got to talk about the Browns. Boy, that is all kinds of bad news for the Browns. You know, when you think about what could happen in the first round of the playoffs that would change the way we think about at least a part of the NFL. Well, if the Browns upset the Steelers, I'm not even sure it should be an upset. Steelers win the division with 12 games, but they were really kind of free-falling at the end of the season. What coincided with a tougher part of the schedule was an exhausted Pittsburgh team who had to take their bye week 4 because of COVID. This is now the third time Pittsburgh will be facing another team that had a COVID issue, and we'll see if their schedule gets changed once again. Pittsburgh keeps getting the short end of the stick there. But you know, it happened against the Titans early. They had to reschedule a game, and then they happened against the Ravens when they were supposed to have a mini bye later on because they played all these weeks in a row just as the schedule got tough. Then they were supposed to host a Thursday game against the Ravens. They had to give that game up. And so, they started playing poorly. Part of it was schedule getting tougher. Part of it was the fact that they had to take their bye so early and they were tired. And part of it was they never got a real running game going because they can't block for the run. And Ben Roethlisberger can't throw the ball down the field, or at least he hasn't successfully. Is that because they can't protect him long enough for the receivers to get down there? Or is that because he doesn't have the arm to do it any more accurately? Right? Don't tell me, well, I see him throw it down the field. If a quarterback gets older, he can still muscle it, get some mustard on the ball, but he's not going to be able to throw it as accurately, consistently. And so Pittsburgh was looking bad recently, and meantime, the Browns were looking good. They found an identity as the season wore on. They became what Mike Tomlin used to say about this, what he said about the Steelers at his introductory press conference when he first got the job. Mike Tomlin said, Steelers football, run the ball, stop the run. It's not Steelers football right now. They're certainly not running the ball. But the Browns are. Cleveland, insofar as they have a defensive strength, it's against the run, and they certainly can run the ball. That's the run the ball, stop the run team. At least that's what they're trying to do. That's their identity. And they're doing it, by the way, with an excellent head coach in Kevin Stefanski, who had a lot of success as the offensive coordinator in Minnesota, but really brought the best out in Baker Mayfield, a guy who had 4 head coaches in a little over 2 seasons, and so looked like, if not a first-round bust, certainly a bust as the number 1 overall pick, but maybe he would settle into being an okay starter. But like Alex Smith, another number 1 overall pick a long time ago, you know, Alex Smith, remember, he kept recycling through offensive coordinators, so he never really got a rhythm going, never had stability. And once he had a little stability, you can say, oh, Alex Smith, he was not Aaron Rodgers, but he can play. He's a good starter. Baker Mayfield's a good starter. He's a starting quarterback, and a nice one, in the right situation, which he seems to be in now. And I say all this to say, the reason I'm bringing all this up is the Browns really were poised to win this game. I know a lot of people think, well, they're going to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is big brother. They got that big brother whammy over the Browns. But I'm telling you, what an upset that would be to the kind of way we think, at least about the AFC North. You know, if not matter and energy, the way we think about the universe, no. But about the way we think about the AFC North, yes, it would change things. Yeah, the 12-win team in the Steelers, 2 11-win teams in Baltimore and Cleveland. But suddenly, if the Browns were to win and advance in the playoffs by bumping off the Steelers, then all of a sudden, it's not like just the Steelers and the Ravens. Little brother done come up in the world. Right now the Steelers really got something to worry about going forward, because the Browns still have all these draft picks and a lot of capital left to spend and resources. They might be good for a while. But instead, think about Cleveland. Instead, they're not going to have their coach. They're not going to have some assistant coaches. They may not have some players. Once they're done contact tracing, who knows, as Jeff Saturday was talking about, as this news broke on First Take earlier today, who knows who's going to be able to suit up? Someone's getting screwed here. Like either the Steelers, this game gets postponed somehow, and the Steelers, for the third time against a real rival team, right? Because early on, the Titans were a powerhouse, and so were the Steelers, and Titans get COVID, and the Steelers have to miss their bye, and the game gets moved, and then the Ravens, because of COVID issues, the Steelers lose their mini bye again, and the game gets moved. And if now Cleveland, the Steelers are looking there like, dude, this keeps on winding up our problem. But worse is if they don't move the game, does Cleveland, how many players are they going to wind up missing? Could you imagine if you're a Cleveland Browns fan right now, just a fan of the team? Do you know what this franchise has been through? In the 80s, Baltimore loses their franchise to Indianapolis, the Colts, right? But then they pick off the Cleveland franchise. Cleveland franchise wound up in Baltimore. But there was such outrage and such a groundswell of support to try to get back the Browns in Cleveland that it actually worked. They didn't get the original franchise back, obviously, but they got the rights to all the history of the Browns franchise. So while it's a new franchise, the original one now in Baltimore, right? They have the Cleveland Browns. They got the name, they got the history. It's a weird thing, right? How do you have the rights to the history? Well, no, it's the new Cleveland Browns. Back in the day, New Coke, the new Cleveland Browns. And these fans who actually made that happen, that was a grassroots campaign. These fans who've shown up to these Cleveland games come hell or high water all these years with very little hope for very little promise for the immediate future or the near future. Finally, you look on paper, and I'm telling you right now, the Browns should have been favored to win this game, even though it's at Pittsburgh. Browns have a better team. Certainly, Pittsburgh was favored by 3.5. I thought that was a little bit much. I thought at most 2.5, under a field goal. You want to give them a field goal. But over a field goal, okay, it's still not lopsided, those odds. So if you're a Browns fan, finally, you're going to beat Pittsburgh and advance in the playoffs. The Browns are going to win a playoff game, maybe? And against the Steelers? And instead, who knows who's going to be able to suit up for this game even? Ooh, that's brutal. You ever feel you get a feeling like some franchises are just snake bit, right? Like the Chargers are a franchise like that. The Jets are a franchise like that. The Browns just feel snake bit. This franchise can't catch a break. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. That wasn't even Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. I'll give you some Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise coming up. Joe Judge, the Giants' head football coach, was asked whether he thought the Eagles did anything wrong in terms of how they approached the game 2 nights ago when Doug Pederson, the Eagles head coach, opted late in the game. It was the end of the third or the beginning of the fourth quarter. It was about a quarter left of football. Opted to yank the starter, the second-round draft pick, the guy who's going to take the team over from Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts, who, in spite of his poor play as the game wore on, was the reason they were even in it. They were down a field goal, and they could have tied it up. It was a chip shot. They decided not to kick the field goal to go for it, but it was a close game, competitive game, and Hurts had chances to win. And rather than find out if Hurts could deliver a win against a divisional rival with playoff hopes on the line, or with the playoffs on the line, rather than find out if Hurts could orchestrate a fourth-quarter comeback against a team, without all his guys even, against a team with playoffs on the line, a divisional rival in prime time, rather than find that out, Joe Judge puts in the third stringer, Sudfeld, saying that he wanted to take a look, see what the guy, he was going to evaluate the third string guy. Never mind the second round pick who's starting. Never mind that guy who gives you a chance. It's time to evaluate the third string guy. And since no one bought that excuse, everyone assumed it was a tank job to get better draft position. Better draft position? What, to go from 9th to 6th? I had a bunch of people on Twitter. Oh, yeah, look, here are all the number 6 picks. Here are all the number 9 picks. But Howie Roseman passed on Metcalf and Justin Jefferson recently in the draft. Roseman hasn't selected a Pro Bowler in 5 years. Roseman's better off picking 9th than 6th. Let someone else make a mistake. The guy who he wouldn't have taken will fall to him. He's better off. Anyway, so the question was asked of Giants head football coach Joe Judge, do you think the Eagles did anything wrong in how they approached the game? And here's Joe Judge's answer.
There's a number of sacrifices been made by all the players and coaches in this league. There's a number of sacrifices that come along as well with the family members of the people connected to them. To disrespect the effort that everyone put forward to make this season a success for the National Football League, to disrespect the game by going out there and not competing for 60 minutes and doing everything you can to help those players win, we will never do that as long as I'm the head coach of the New York Giants.
So Joe Judge says his team's always going to compete. When he's asked about the Eagles, on Monday, they're always going to compete. You just heard it. We'll never do that as long as I'm head coach of the New York Football Giants, right? Or the New York Giants. I added football. It sounds cooler when you add football. Many Eagles players and coaches, according to the reporting, were shocked and outraged. Team sources told the Inquirer, the Philly Inquirer. Some were angry. 2 defensive players had to be held back from approaching Pederson. Center Jason Kelce. Well, those Kelce brothers, Jason and Travis Kelce, keep it real. I like those guys. And they're really good. Obviously, Travis Kelce, but Jason Kelce too. And another offensive starter, along with Jason Kelce, went to the coach to ask him why he'd pulled the starting quarterback with the Eagles trailing by only 3. How do you face the team after that? Here's the crazy thing, though. You just heard the Joe Judge sound. I have a good mind to play it again, but you just heard the Joe Judge sound. If I told you, I can't remember a time, maybe there has been, I'm sure there has been, I can't remember it offhand, where a head coach in either baseball, a manager, or a head coach in basketball or football, in Major League Baseball, the NBA, or the NFL, talked about a rival head coach like that. I mean, he didn't mention him by name, but it's obvious who he's talking about. He was asked about it point blank. But let alone a divisional rival. But how about this? If you did hear that sound, and you hear it's not unanimous. Not everyone's praising Joe Judge. We had a lot of guys on First Take, Jeff Saturday and Swagoo. Marcus Spears were, along with Stephen A. Smith, were saying, no, it's no big, Joe Judge shouldn't say that and this and that. The vast majority of football fans and people in the media, and I think players too, the overwhelming response, there's never unanimity about anything, but the overwhelming response was right on Joe Judge. And here's the thing. If you heard that and you knew the response to a coach saying that was overwhelmingly positive, and you knew that one of the coaches had won a Super Bowl in the last 5 years, and the other coach is a rookie head coach, who would you guess is who? right? Wouldn't you be like, obviously the Super Bowl coach can say that about a rookie head coach. Rookie head coach wouldn't say that about a Super Bowl winning coach. It was so egregious. And I don't think that's just Joe Judge talking as the Giants head coach. Football people, by and large, feel that way. It was so egregious that the rookie talks about the Super Bowl winner like that, and everyone's like, yep, he's dead on. Guys, think about this for a second. And Marcus Spears was arguing with me, talking about how I'll say that this year it wasn't going to be perfect because of COVID, and the Denver Broncos played without a quarterback, and I said, them's the breaks. And how is this different? This is totally different. This is totally different. You're dealing with a pandemic. You're trying to get through a season against all odds. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to have to play some games, and guys who are it's basically like just being hurt, right? If you get sick or just being sick. That's how the league had to treat it if they tried to get through the season. I have no problem with that. Yep, Denver had to play without a quarterback. Tough. That's totally different than, Joe Judge's whole point is, look at everything we've been through. And now a coach pulls that stunt? And by the way, here's the problem, everybody. No one believes he wanted to take a look at Sudfeld. Come on. You need to evaluate your second round pick. You need to know if you're the Eagles, because Carson Wentz is finished. Certainly in Philadelphia, but I'm telling you, he'd never be a good quarterback again. And I've been. It's not like I'm Johnny come lately on this. I've been pulling that bandwagon, noticing the decline from the second half of last year, arguing with Dan Orlovsky about it on the air on First Take the whole time. And then this year, I just saw it continue until it all went to hell. Look, Pederson's a good coach. I'm not saying Doug Pederson's not a good coach. He is a good coach. Anytime he gets a quarterback, whether it's a 40-year-old quarterback on one leg in the playoffs, or whether it's Nick Foles or Jalen Hurts, they do very well with Doug Pederson as a head coach and a quarterback who will simply follow a game plan. It's Wentz that threw the monkey wrench in everything. So I think Pederson's a good coach, but not for this team, not anymore. You can't do that and still, you got to get rid of him. And you got to get rid of Howie Roseman, too. The only thing I could see saving Doug Pederson is if he came out, or if it came out, that his hands were tied and this was the plan and he was told what to do and he had to do it. Because remember, this was a coach that was not allowed to pick his own staff. So, maybe that's the case. If that's the case, okay. And even then, the stench is just too strong. May have to get rid of him. 888-SAY-ESPN, 729-3776. By the way, speaking of COVID, Kevin Durant is facing a 7-day quarantine, according to our very own Adrian Wojnarowski. It's going to force him to miss the next 4 games. Durant, who had COVID-19 in May, has continued to register coronavirus antibodies and tested negative for the virus 3 times in recent days, sources said. And by the way, the Nets have not been playing well. Our very own Bobby Marks said that they're playing soft. And meantime, the Knicks are playing hard. Tom Thibodeau team. Tom Thibodeau will play you hard. He'll play you so hard you won't have anything left for the playoffs. But the bottom line is about the Knicks, they are hoping to compete for the play-in, not the playoffs, the play-in. Maybe the Knicks can be in the play-in game. Understand there are 15 teams in a conference. 10 of them, or 8 of them are in the playoffs, plus you got a play-in game. So that means 2/3 of the conference is still playing after the season ends. And the Knicks are just hoping not to be one of the 5 teams who don't even get to play after the season's over. They're just like, if we can keep this up, R.J. Barrett and and Emmanuel Quickly and these guys. By the way, I like Quickly. I like some of these guys, but maybe we can make it to the playing game. The Nets are like, damn, we lost Dinwiddie for the season. An all-star caliber player in his best season, right? Dinwiddie, who's an above-average player at the most competitive position in basketball, if not in sports today. Most competitive positions, quarterback in the NFL or point guard in the NBA. Those are 2 most competitive positions in sports. Where if you're like, I'm an above-average starter, damn, you're good. Dinwiddie was an above-average starter. By the way, Dinwiddie, LeVert, Joe Harris, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, most unguardable starting 5 in the NBA. And not close. Not close. No starting 5 is nearly in the same hemisphere as those 5 in terms of being an unguardable offense, right? Unguardable. What can you do? In fact, I think that it should have been Dinwiddie off the bench and LeVert in the starting lineup, right? But it doesn't matter because that's a huge hit for any team to take. And I'm telling you right now, Dinwiddie gone for the season. The Nets are going to compete for a championship this year. They're losing all kinds of games, and Kyrie is dominating the ball, and he's shooting too much, and KD isn't shooting enough, and they're not playing defense, and they're being called soft, and one of their best players is out for the year. He ain't coming back, and they're going to compete for a championship this season. And the Knicks fans are, everyone's hopes are up. Compete for a playing game. Play in, not off. Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio. That was straight talk. See, that's straight talk, New York. I know you listen in New York. LA, I got stuff for you in a little bit. We're going all over the place. NFL, Chargers job. Lots of stuff going on. Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio, is presented by Progressive Insurance. You can save big when you bundle your auto, home, motorcycle, RV, or boat. Visit Progressive.com. What team is the best fit for Eric Bieniemy, according to the ZipRecruiter job search machine? Look at that.
Doc, limitations and exclusions apply.
The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Who is the best coach to make sure Justin Herbert fulfills his potential? We're going to get to that in a second. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests join me on the Goodyear Hotline. See where Eric Bieniemy should land. The NFL playoffs kick off this week. We've got Ravens-Titans this Sunday at 1:05 p.m. Eastern on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN Deportes. And the ESPN Megacast broadcast continues on ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and Freeform. All right. Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy is the big name being considered for several head coaching jobs, vacancies, you know. And this is the way it works nowadays. Nowadays, it is in vogue to go to the offensive coordinator of the team who has, you know, the hottest offense, particularly if that guy's never had an NFL head coaching job, right? Because there's potential. And he becomes the hot commodity. And by the way, this is significant because, you know, racist or just stereotypes along the lines of race can be pernicious and pervasive. You know, they're all over the place in ways people don't really realize. And I think that that's one of the reasons you have the kind of discrepancy in terms of hiring white versus black. Like, we can talk about diversity, you know, for diversity's sake, but what we're really talking about is African-American diversity. Like, in a league that's predominantly African-American, they're on the field way underrepresented in head coaching positions. Is that because they just don't know how to coach? No. It's because, if you believe that, we're at an impasse. Or is it because of decision makers and you know, either conscious or unconscious biases? And one of the things you notice is in terms of offensive coordinators nowadays, that is, you don't see a lot of African-American offensive coordinators. And so it's interesting to me that now that the number one offense has an African-American offensive coordinator, it has taken a while for that guy to kind of be the guy. But I think he is now. I think of all the non-kind of sexy college football names, Bieniemy is the most obvious choice that teams want. And who are these teams? There are 3 vacancies right now. There is the Jets job. Sam Darnold is your quarterback. You have an irrelevant franchise that has been, you know, all cities that have 2 franchises in any given sport. Most of the time, there's the heritage franchise and the clown franchise. You know, the problem with New York City is the Knicks were both the heritage franchise and the clown franchise because there was no other franchise in town. Now that the Nets are there, you can see the Knicks are the clown franchise. Meantime, the Jets have always been the clown franchise in New York. The Giants are the heritage franchise, and the Jets are the clown franchise. And they have really not been relevant, not really, since Super Bowl III, which is before I was born, talking about 50-plus years ago, over half a century. Here and there, they pop their heads up. You think, but when was the last time you thought, I think the Jets are going to win the Super Bowl? Jets fans, not you. Jets fans are hilarious, by the way. I don't know if the rest of the country knows this, but Jets fans like one win, and they think they're going to win the Super Bowl, and one loss, and they want to tear it all down. Oh, the highs and the lows. But the fact of the matter is the Jets are who they are, and they have a problem from the top on down, from ownership on down. It's not a good franchise. The Chargers head coaching job, look, you're in L.A., and you have a quarterback whose floor, to me, seems to be Matthew Stafford, if he stays healthy, and whose ceiling is way higher than that, and who's been compared on First Take. He's been compared, and Get Up on ESPN, he's been compared to both Patrick Mahomes and Dan Marino. I don't think he's Mahomes or Marino, but I understand why you compare him to those guys. Like, he has the kind of talent that makes you compare him to those kind of players. If your ceiling is the best ever and your floor is, say, Stafford if you stay healthy, that's a damn good quarterback. And then you have the Jaguars, who not only are going to have Trevor Lawrence, but also have a ton of draft picks, slew of picks, and $100 million in cap space to spend. What's the best job? We need to run it through the ZipRecruiter job search engine. Raj, go ahead, hit Raj, my producer in LA. I'm in New York. This is how it works during COVID. I'm going to have to ask you from your remote location to hit go on the ZipRecruiter job search engine. Go. Let's hear it. And having a little bit of audio difficulty. So I'm going to assume, Raj, that we have heard the ZipRecruiter engine. I don't know if you're talking at the moment, but let me just tell you what I'm reading on my screen, okay? On my screen, it's coming up, and it says, Chargers head coaching job, Raj. The Chargers are the place for Bieniemy to go. By the way, we didn't even talk about the Texans. The Texans are a good choice. And you have Deshaun Watson, and that's tough to argue again, but let me explain the reasoning of the ZipRecruiter job search engine, okay? The Jaguars are still the Jaguars. You're in Jacksonville. You're not in L.A. And if Trevor Lawrence turns out to be everything people think he's going to be, he'll be Justin Herbert, who's already that. Chargers have talent on both sides of the ball. They're in the second biggest market in the country, and in addition to that, they're only the fourth most popular football team in L.A. Let me tell you, or the fourth most popular football franchise in L.A., or that L.A. fans root for. The number one football franchise L.A. fans root for is actually the Raiders still. I mean, the Raiders, who haven't been in L.A. in a grip, who were, up in Northern California and are now out of state, still get the biggest kind of passionate response, the most passion from fans. The Rams, who've been to a Super Bowl recently, are actually the heritage franchise in L.A., where they're the longest, we're the oldest franchise, and all that. And the Trojans, all more popular than the Chargers in Los Angeles. But actually that works because the pressure's off. You get to be in L.A., you get to have a great young quarterback, a talented franchise, and no pressure. In a way, no pressure. It's all upside. In second place would be the Texans because Deshaun Watson is a stud. But the Texans have made so many bad trades. That trade for DeAndre Hopkins, when they traded DeAndre Hopkins, really hurt them. And you want no part of the Jets. So there it is, ZipRecruiter job search engine has decided, not me, this is not just my opinion, this is the ZipRecruiter job search engine, Raj. I don't know if I've made that clear. By the way, people still want to talk about what Doug Pederson did, Eagles head coach. Axe Max is next. 888-SAY-ESPN. And it's been an exciting football season, hasn't it? Very dramatic. That's why everyone's so mad at Pederson. Took the drama out of the game. Luckily for us football fans, there's still more action to be had, and DraftKings is here to help you make it rain. DraftKings, when Raj runs our league, my producer. Quote Explorer is changing the way you buy home insurance. Now you go online, get a custom quote, and save both time and money. Learn more at Progressive.com.
X. Max.
And, Raj, I'll just wait for your cue.
You can't see me.
There we go. Steven from Philly says, Raj and I have before we begin, Raj and I have a Zoom link up. This is how it is during COVID, guys. So I have a laptop here, as you can see on ESPN Plus, and there's a Zoom hookup, and Raj has a Zoom hookup. What Raj fails to understand is, in order for me to see him, he needs to make some kind of noise. So the Zoom, there it is. See, now he's laughing, and now I can see him. So he's trying to give me visual cues, but he's not making any noise, so I'm just looking at myself in the screen. Good job, Raj. Steven from Philly, diehard Eagles fan. He agrees with me on firing Howie Roseman, but Jeffrey Lurie will never do it. Well, great. I hope Jeffrey Lurie doesn't do it. I hope he keeps Roseman. I hope he keeps Doug Pederson. I'm a Giants fan. I want them to keep this dysfunctional situation in place. People the Giants controlled their own fate, and it's their fault. Yeah, right, I get it. I'm a Giants fan, and I'm extra mad about what Pederson did. Like I tweeted when he did it, "You are my enemy, Doug Pederson." But that is as a Giants fan. As a football fan, let's say this was happening in the AFC North. Let's say it was the Ravens and the Steelers and the Browns who were involved in that. I'd be ticked off. If I'm in New York watching that stuff, I'd be mad, man. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I was watching a game. It got flexed to primetime. There's, two divisional rivals are playing each other. And if Mike Tomlin pulled Ben Roethlisberger against the Browns and somehow that stuck it to the Ravens, I'd be like, nah, man, come on. Anyway, look, Jeff, I think Doug Pederson's a good coach. And the reason I say that is because this dude has done very well whenever he's had a quarterback who just did what he asked. And maybe Pederson's hands have been tied. I don't know. But Roseman, this guy hasn't drafted a Pro Bowler in almost half decade now. Tarek in New Jersey, Doug Pederson's move to pull Hurts was about looking to the future, and that's okay. You know what I haven't heard anyone say? Here's something I could maybe, or at least is the strongest argument. Pederson pulled Hurts because he didn't want him to get hurt. He didn't want Hurts to get hurt in the fourth quarter of a game. I haven't heard anyone talk about that. But even then, hold on. I need to know, can this guy be the franchise quarterback? Can you conduct a fourth quarter comeback and play spoiler to a divisional rival in primetime by keeping them out of the playoffs in a one-score game? Might you want to know about that, particularly without your weapons on the field and when the trend of your play is going south? Can you right the ship? Can you get it going in the right direction again? Yeah, if I was an Eagles fan, I'd like to see that. The idea that looking to the future, you want to see what your third stringer can do, get out of here. Rick from Brooklyn, why is Doug Pederson not getting fired? Listen, if I were Jeffrey Lurie, honestly, he'd be gone by the next morning. Everyone, I'd clean house by the next morning. This has gone on too long. With the Eagles, it's really ridiculous. You think about what they went through with Carson Wentz. It was a total mess. Even before this, I was saying you got to clean house if you're the Eagles. Will from Maine. Can anyone besides Fields or Lawrence help the Patriots? Listen, I'm not convinced that Cam Newton can't be that guy. It usually takes you a full year to recover from a catastrophic injury and then another year to get back to your original level. Well, Cam Newton just got back. He didn't have the whole year to get back to where he was, and it was with a new team during COVID where they couldn't practice, bereft of offensive weapons, and he got COVID. It's a whole lotta. Heard what the caller said about Pederson? Hear what the players said? Max Kellerman Show.
Coming up on Hump Day.
Yes, the Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, and Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests join me on the Goodyear Hotline. Many Eagles players and coaches were shocked and outraged, team sources told the Inquirer. Some were angry. 2 defensive players had to be held back from approaching head coach Doug Pederson. Center Jason Kelce, I told you to go check out his December 19th media availability. Well worth your while. Anyway, go Google it. Kelce and another offensive starter went to Doug Pederson to ask him why he had pulled the starting quarterback with the Eagles trailing by only 3. Anyway, we're supposed to have Stephen A. Smith coming up because the debut of Stephen A's World on ESPN Plus is happening today. And yet, we're having so many audio difficulties today that I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. Raj is telling me we can do it, but I'm telling you, Raj, that the connection that we're trying to use just failed. So I'm trying this again. Oh, now I hear Stephen A. Are you there?
I'm here, man. What's going on, bro?
Oh, we're having all kinds of technical difficulties right now, but for Stephen A. Smith, yes, I can. It's all happening on my end, but for Stephen A. Smith, we're gonna slog through to make sure to get you on. So the debut of Stephen A's World on ESPN Plus. Tell me all about it.
Well, that's a week. That's January 11th. It's coming Monday. It's going to be on ESPN Plus. It's a half-hour show every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Not only am I the host of it, I'm the executive producer of it, and my production company, Mr. SAS Productions, is going to be co-producing this in concert with ESPN. So I'm incredibly excited because it's my first foray into that realm. And essentially, you know what? It's not going to be the Max Kellerman. It's not going to be the Stephen A. Max Kellerman sees every day, at least totally. I mean, I'm going to do what I do. But I definitely want to be a little bit more lighthearted with it and all of that stuff. I mean, I have aspirations to one day do late night television. It's something that I've always dreamed about doing and what have you. And so just to celebrate other people, to celebrate what they're doing, to have some fun, not that we don't have fun on First Take because we do every day, but I'm just talking about just bringing considerably more levity to the situation and just, you know, doing things on a lighthearted level to some degree. You're going to see baby Stephen A. up in there. You're going to see the Love Doc up in there. You're going to see a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm just looking forward to having some fun, man.
Yeah, look, I know, I got you. This is Max on radio is different than Max on First Take because radio or your own show on ESPN Plus, you can do your thing. You can give a side of yourself that people don't always see. So that's going to be very interesting. ESPN Plus a week from today or a week from yesterday?
A week from yesterday. It's going to debut Monday, January 11th.
So Monday it debuts, this upcoming Monday. Meantime, Stephen A., you and I were going at it about Joe Judge and the Eagles tanking.
Right.
Will you state your absurd position so my radio audience can hear what we're arguing about?
Well, first of all, I leave the absurd opinions to you because we both know that I'm far more sensible than you. You're far more cerebral. Here's the reality of the situation. Neither of us disagree about what we saw Doug Pederson would do with the Eagles. It was reprehensible. We don't like it. You and I have a difference of opinion because I don't think he should be fired. He's a Super Bowl champion. Has taken them to the playoffs the last 3 years. It's the first time they're missing the playoffs in 4 years. I think that you grant him an opportunity to correct the error of his ways and bring him back. Where we adamantly disagree or vehemently disagree is when I talked about Joe Judge saying what he said about the Eagles. I think he needs to be quiet. I think all members of the New York Giants need to be quiet. If Max Kellerman wants to take that position and voice his opinion, sure. I want to do it, sure. Other NFL aficionados, hell, even other members of other teams, fine, go ahead and do it. But for you, as the coach of the New York Giants, to have a 5-7 record after Week 12, to be in first place, completely in control of your own destiny in the NFC least, and then you lose 3 games in a row, scoring a grand total of 26 points over 3 weeks, all ending up in losses. You don't have any business saying anything or coming across as pointing a finger at anybody for what your failings were. You had an opportunity for the Eagles' outcome against the Washington football team to not matter to you at all. But you didn't handle your business when you had an opportunity to do so prior to Sunday. You brought that on yourself. And I side with Michael Irvin. Shut up. You lost, and that's it.
Look, I understand what you mean about it. Just not going to – the appearance isn't going to be good, right, if for Joe Judge to do it because he's the Giants' coach. But, Stephen A., frequently at the end of a season, a game where a team can play spoiler doesn't really affect that team, but it can affect the divisional rival. It can affect the fans' viewing experience, right? That's why they flex the game to prime time. So is your argument that Joe Judge doesn't have a case or it shouldn't come from Joe Judge?
My argument is that it shouldn't come from Joe Judge, period. That's it. Nothing more than that. I'm not saying that his argument is invalid. I'm saying it shouldn't come from him.
All right. Meantime, so we disagree about that, but I get your point. Where do you think Bieniemy should go?
I got to tell you, Max, I was initially thinking the Chargers like you because of Justin Herbert. But if he's got a chance to go join forces with Deshaun Watson, I can't ignore that, bro. Even you yourself said, when I gave you my top 5 MVP list, you actually tried to make a case for Deshaun Watson, whose team was 4-12. You know how great you have to be considered for MVP honors when your team is 4-12? But that's what you said about Deshaun Watson. That speaks to his greatness. I mean, and when you have that level of greatness, I don't give a damn what you see from Justin Herbert. Tell me something you see from Justin Herbert that you haven't seen from Deshaun Watson. I'm going to roll with that.
You ain't lying. I mean, Deshaun Watson, here's why I like the Chargers still. You're in L.A., and so you're in the best place to be, basically, and it's in a way low pressure. Like, you have a great young quarterback. If Trevor Lawrence turns out to be as good as Herbert, we're going to say, wow, he fulfilled his potential. So you already got that guy. You have talent on both sides of the ball. You're in la-la land, and yet all eyes are on the Chargers. People are thinking about the Trojans. People are even thinking about the Raiders before they're thinking about you. So it's somehow all the good things without the bad things. I still like the Chargers, but Deshaun Watson has been unbelievable this season.
Well, let me ask you this question. If you like Bieniemy and you respect Bieniemy and you want a great opportunity for Bieniemy, why would you want to send him into football purgatory? The Chargers barely have a home. Nobody cares about them in Los Angeles. Most people wish that they go back to San Diego because that's where they're beloved. They just didn't want to sit up there and spend the funds to build a new stadium. But the reality of the situation, that's the only place they have fans. You don't find Chargers fans anywhere else in the country. Nobody particularly cares about them.
You don't really find
They're going to care about the Rams. They're going to care about the Raiders. Why would you want Bieniemy to be there? I could see if they were back in San Diego. But since that's not the case, why in God's name would we want to wish that on Bieniemy?
Meantime, we haven't even argued about this on the air yet. So we're going to, we'll do it on First Take, I'll bet you, this week at some point. So I'm going to leave the Patrick Mahomes stuff alone for a second. Who do you think can beat the Chiefs?
I think the only team that's really got a shot is Green Bay or Tampa Bay. Those are the only. I don't think anybody in the AFC has a shot at beating Kansas City. Not a real shot. And I think in the NFC, because if Tom Brady gets hotter and Aaron Rodgers continues to do what he's doing, they got a shot. That's it.
Not the Bills. You don't like the Bills?
No. Stephon Diggs is a stud. Josh Allen is a stud. But a two-headed monster ain't going to get it done against Kansas City. You need more.
Now, listen, Stephen A. Smith, you hear Stephen A. Smith, and you start thinking basketball. And I mocked you and Molly because you both were thinking that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were going to wind up on the Knicks, and they wound up with Julius Randle. But you were on First Take today lauding Julius Randle and R.J. Barrett and Quickly and all these guys on the Knicks. You think New York should be excited about the Knicks right now?
I think New York should be excited about the Knicks only from the standpoint of looking at them and saying, okay, this isn't the same team. This isn't the same deplorable, lackluster, dysfunctional bunch that has contaminated our television sets and every crevice of New York City for the better part of the last decade. It's a new day. I think you got a coach in Tom Thibodeau that lives, eats, and breathes basketball. I think you have somebody that's fixated on being competitive, that is going to have a top 5 defense, that's going to have you playing with energy and fervor practically every single night. Whether or not that lasts remains to be seen, and we understand that. But I think because the Knicks are devoid of stars, you can go deep and you can just throw fresh legs out there, which will enable you to compete on a different level than you've been competing. And as a result, we'll look at the Knicks. I think they've got a chance to be a 500 team in a 72-game season. I think they got a chance to go 36-36. That can lead you to making the playoffs on the back end. And if you're going and if your competition is a team in Brooklyn that has championship expectations, the pressure will be on them to get to the finals. The pressure's on you just to be relevant and respectable. That would be an upside and something to cheer about with the New York Knicks, which I don't think is a bad thing.
Stephen A., meantime, I know you love the fight game. Ryan Garcia knocked out Luke Campbell over the weekend. And the lightweight division is very hot right now. And, of course, because of promotional and network issues, he doesn't try to call out Teofimo Lopez, the lightweight kingpin, the champ, who knows how long Lopez will stay at lightweight. But he did call out Tank Davis, and Devin Haney was there. How do you like Garcia's chances against Tank and Devin?
Well, first of all, I think that Ryan Garcia's quickness, he's got lightning speed in both hands, and I like that. I definitely think he's good as an offensive fighter. He's great. He's undefeated, with more than 80% of his knockouts. We get all of that. Tank Davis is no joke, man. This dude is a rough rider. And if he's willing to trade punches with you and he catches you, we saw Luke Campbell drop Garcia. And Garcia, if he wasn't completely hurt, he definitely was stunned. And I think that if somebody like Tank Davis had him in that kind of position, I question whether or not he would have been able to get out of that round. So I'm paying attention to that as well. I like Haney a lot too, but I do want to see Davis against Garcia because, Garcia against Davis because Garcia's been calling him out, and that's something that needs to happen. And I need to see Tank Davis in a big fight, not going up against somebody who moves up 2 weight classes to go at him. I believe in the kid. I believe in his power. I believe in his heart. But I want to see him against somebody his own size or bigger to really justify and validate that level of power we've seen him exhibit. In the end, it's a fight that I love to see. I can't count Tank Davis out against anybody. Don't even mind if he's the favorite.
You're right
but
about
I
that.
will tell you that Ryan Garcia does look special. He does look special.
You're right. By the way, you count out Tank Davis, you might be getting counted out because Tank can punch.
That's right.
He's got a lot of talent. And, Stephen, I saw you tweeting about Chris Colbert at junior lightweight. Shakur Stevenson now moved up to that division. There's Brandon Lee at junior welterweight. I mean, this 130 to 140 pounds, really 135-pound division is smoking right now. Smoking.
It's special.
Is Colbert your favorite?
Shakur Stevenson, yes, he is. Colbert is my favorite. I like Colbert a lot. I just think that I think he's got a lot of Floyd Money Mayweather in him in terms of boxing ability. I question his power, even though he finished that dude, really picked him apart and dropped him about 3 times and finished him off in the 11th round, if I remember correctly. But if this kid had knockout power, and I understand he's fresh off a knockout, but his knockout percentage is not that high. But I think you know this. If he had knockout power, we might be talking about him in the same breath we talk about a Terrence Crawford, we talk about an Errol Spence Jr., even though they're bigger there at the welterweight division. I'm just talking about his boxing ability, his speed, his hand speed, the way he can move and be evasive at times. He seems to take punches a little bit too much at times, but that's when he knows that he has nothing to worry about with somebody. I marvel at the kid's skills. This kid Colbert is something special. I'm a huge fan of his, and I think he's going to make some noise in the future. I really do.
Well, Stephen A., we've done it all. We talk football, basketball, boxing. Stephen A. Smith, upcoming debut of Stephen A.'s World on ESPN+. Stephen A., is it fair to say Stephen A. like you haven't seen him before? Monday is the debut?
Well, I think in some respects, yes. You're always going to get some element of me that you've seen before, but there will be elements in the show that you'll be like, wow, I'm surprised he did that. You know, it'll be a little bit different. I can tell you that much.
Well, look forward to our sparring session tomorrow, 10 a.m. And until then, thanks for coming on the show, brother.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, bro.
Stephen A. Smith, ladies and gentlemen, on the Goodyear Hotline. Goodyear helping you to discover the road ahead. Goodyear, more driven. I'll tell you what, this beats working for a living. Stealing money like this beats working for a living. Wake up in the morning, yell at Stephen A., get yelled at by Stephen A. for 2 hours. It's pretty good. So, Jerry Jones. Is this breaking news, Raj? Are we talking breaking news right now? Did this just happen?
It happened on his radio hit on 105.3.
This is the stuff right now. Okay. Right. Jerry Jones said on 105.3 The Fan that Dak is in a good position regarding his contract talks. I don't know how you could have any more leverage. Cowboys finished dead last. Well, that's not true. The Eagles finished last. His evolving into an NFL quarterback has been nothing short of a perfect picture. He has great ability, in my mind, to win games. He's talented. He certainly has the experiences and has all the things, which has been substantiated by what we've offered Dak. You wouldn't offer Dak what we've offered him in the past if you didn't think he was very special. The issue is the issue is how do you come together? And that's no stranger to me. I've been doing it all my life, putting things together. We got to get it together. Speaking of get it together, now that we're not doing the phone call, I can put my headphones back on and not have to hear echo anymore. Big audio problems today, ladies and gentlemen. Look, here's the bottom line about Dak Prescott. He gives you a premium over, I think Andy Dalton's a good backup. He gives you a real premium over Andy Dalton. I think it's pretty clear if Dak had been healthy, the Cowboys win the division. They still wouldn't have been any good. Maybe they would have gotten 8-8, but that would have been more than enough to get it done. And so, yes, Dak does have some leverage. But listen to what Jerry said. That's why we offered him the contract we did. Look, how'd the Carson Wentz contract work out for the Eagles? Because Wentz, Dak, and Goff all in the same draft class. You know, Dak in the fourth round, those two guys 1 and 2, Goff and Wentz. Goff got a big contract, and he might not start in the playoffs. I mean, like, he should. You imagine he would. But Walford, I mean, look, McVay was asked point blank, who's starting? He wouldn't answer yesterday. And meantime, Carson Wentz is sitting on the bench, leaking to the press that it's irreparable between him and Doug Pederson, and has an immovable contract. What's hilarious, I don't know if it's Wentz doing this or the team. They're like, because Chris Mortensen reported, someone told Chris Mortensen, the Eagles are going to want a big haul for Carson Wentz. It's in both the team and Wentz's interests to have that out there because it makes it seem as though Wentz has any value at all. If you're the team, you'd like to get out from under that contract. And if you're Wentz, you don't want to be perceived as, a bum, right? You want to be perceived as a decent player. Meantime, that was a mistake to give Wentz the contract. It was a mistake to give Goff the contract. And so Dak was offered a contract in line with theirs. And by the way, based on the fact that he promptly got hurt, that would have been a mistake too. Best duo, because I'm hearing nothing at all right now. So that takes care of that. Is there a better duo than LeBron and AD in the NBA? There's a statistic that says, yes, there is a better duo. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests join me on the Goodyear Hotline. Is it LeBron and AD best duo in the NBA? Not according to net rating. According to net rating, it's LeBron and Marc Gasol who have a plus 28.3. Any two players in the league who've played at least 100 minutes together so far this season. That's per Laker Film Room. Anyway, Raj is now telling me to put my earpiece back in. Is that what you're telling me, Raj? Yeah? All right. Big thumbs up from Raj. This is the reality of doing remote stuff during COVID, everybody. There are technical issues from time to time. At any rate,
See, Max, I want to give you credit because you are handling this well.
LeBron and Marc Gasol have the best net rating. What's that, Raj?
I said I want to give you credit because you are handling these technical difficulties well, but you still have this issue of following simple instructions. We just talked about this during the break. Leave those on so you won't hear yourself echoing.
I'm sorry,
and
Raj,
then you'll be able to talk to me and other people.
Raj, I'm in the middle of Raj, I'd love to talk to you about this, but I'm in the middle of a radio show right now. If you don't mind, we can do the show meeting afterward, if that's okay with you. Listen, Marc Gasol averages under 20 minutes a game, around 20 minutes a game. And so the answer to who's the best duo in the league is going to be LeBron and whoever else LeBron is playing with if the guy is decent, right? I'll tell you, like, LeBron and AD are obviously the best one, too. Marc Gasol is a good passing, good defensive big who can still protect the rim and shoot. So he can do a lot of things that can help you, but at a certain level at this point in his career, he's going to do it, IQ. That's a scary thing about LeBron. Like, if LeBron wanted to keep playing basketball, given his IQ, if Marc Gasol could, how long before LeBron's only as good as Marc Gasol? 10 more years? Like, could you imagine if LeBron played 30 years? If he were willing to be a role player eventually, and a valuable one, he probably could. He's got the size for it. Anyway, if you look at the Sixers right now, when you look at, the advanced metrics, especially defensively, oh, my God. Oh, my God. You know how many guys are among the very best in the league defensively, according to the advanced metrics on the Sixers? Not just Embiid and Simmons. Shake Milton. How about this? Try this one. Everyone knows Thibault is a real good defensive player, and Tobias Harris isn't, right? Tobias Harris, one of the best players in the NBA this season. And you could talk about his offense, which has been outstanding. But honestly, his defense, I don't know if I can reveal the name. I don't know if I want to blast him. So I'll just say I spoke to someone who had coached Tobias Harris. And I said, well, look, at least he's versatile defensively. And they said, yeah, he can't guard all 5 positions. But he's been a good defensive player this year so far. When you're looking at duos, it's LeBron and AD, obviously. If you're looking at units right now, defensively, the Sixers unit, from what I've seen so far this year, that's going to be very, very tough. Take some calls. 888-729-3776. 888-SAY-ESPN. Chris from Pennsylvania, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey,
I got you. Yep.
Hey, does Doug Pederson did you think that the criticism of Doug Pederson comes from the fact that it was a standalone game and the whole world was watching? Because, every team in the league does that. So everybody in the league does that. So do you think it's only the criticism comes from the fact that it was a standalone Sunday night game where everybody was watching?
Yeah, I think that's the intensity of the criticism is because of that. That's true, because everyone was watching it. But I would also say that even if that had happened during the day, and daytime, in the 1 o'clock window or the late at the 4 o'clock window on the East Coast, it doesn't, the issue was, it's one thing to say, hey, we want to rest guys, whatever, but you started Jalen Hurts, and he was giving you a chance to win the game. And in a one-score game, and I'm not even on Peterson for not kicking the field goal to tie it up. You had a whole quarter in front of you, plenty of time. Go for it. I'm not scared. I'm not one of these football, and I'm a Giants fan, so I wasn't second-guessing that, you should have kicked the field goal. Nah, don't worry about the negative result. Don't let that make you scared. Play aggressively. Play to win. I'm okay with that. But to take Hurts out, and he wasn't playing well at that moment, but he was the only thing giving you a chance to win. And also, he's the guy you need to know about, right? You got to know about Hurts. Can he get you a win in prime time against a divisional rival who's gunning for the playoffs, right? Like, can he do that? That tells you something. Seeing your third stringer not being able to handle the snap and throwing an interception, you didn't know that already about that guy? Come on. There was real, like you say, every team does that. Any team that did that in those circumstances with a play. But the fact is, it's not just like, well, it's a standalone game, so everyone was watching. Why was it the standalone game? It was flexed to prime time. It wasn't originally scheduled for prime time. The NFL flexed it to prime time so everyone would pay attention because the division was on the line. So the answer to your question is yes, absolutely. Pederson's getting more flack because it was in prime time. But then you have to ask yourself, why was it flexed there? Let's see. Eric in San Diego, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Because San Diego Charger fans know that the reason that Jason Garrett has been contacted is because that is not a good job in the NFL. Eric Bieniemy, being a former Charger, is and should be the next coach of the the Los Angeles Chargers. Forgive me. The Spanos family, they do meddle. The Los Angeles Chargers have no fan base. Once that team goes back to San Diego, they will have the support that they need to, once again, be a formidable team in the AFC West.
Who am I talking to again?
And
Tell me your name again.
The enemy, though, is just holding the seat for Philip Rivers for when he decides to coach. I just want to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Who is this caller? This was Eric from San Diego. Eric, let's be honest. Let's be honest about this. The San Diego Chargers don't have a huge fan base in San Diego either. San Diego, a beautiful place, but it's a transient town, a military town in many respects. And a lot of times you go to a Chargers game when they were in San Diego, and a lot of fans from other teams would show up. And so Spanos, they're cheap, and by owners' standards, they're poor. But you can't cry poverty if you're a billionaire. I mean, if the other NFL owners are too rich from you, sell your team. It's worth a lot of money. Sell the team. Oh, no, you want to be an owner? Okay, then shut up about how, whoever has, it doesn't have to be Kroenke, anyone has more money than you. That's ridiculous. But you're right that Spanos is not, like, the Chargers' job as a result of ownership is not as attractive as it ought to be. But I actually think in many respects the fact that they're not as popular in L.A. makes it a better job. It's all upside. Imagine coaching in the market. It's the second biggest market, and it's a good weather market, L.A. And it's, the market through which we export our number one export in this country, which is our culture around the world. L.A. is the sexiest market, right? And you're not only not the second most popular team in town, you're not even the third. Trojans are more popular than you, Rams are more popular than you, and in L.A., the Raiders are still more popular than you. But you have a great young quarterback, and it's all upside? And low pressure somehow? That's an awesome job to me. I hear what you're saying. You're right. Was that Eric in San Diego? You're right. I don't think going back to San Diego helps, but I do think that the Chargers is not as attractive a job as it ought to be around the league, because to me it's the number one job right now because of Justin Herbert. Cam's still a starter? Last Take is next. Tune in tonight for complete coverage of the 2020 Heisman ceremony. The finalists are Alabama quarterback Mac Jones, Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence, Alabama wide receiver Devontae Smith, and Florida quarterback Kyle Trask. Before the ceremony, Trevor Lawrence will join Shanae Ngolet Jr. at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, followed by Kyle Trask at 5:45 p.m. Complete coverage of the Heisman ceremony starts tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and ESPN Radio. The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. Right, Raj, furiously signaling to me. Max, stop texting your producer for the boxing show and pay attention to the radio. Man who wears many hats, Raj. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776.
You heard First Take?
At least it's good to hear your voice finally, because I know on First Take I only hear you on the intro and outro.
Now hear Max's Last Take.
You know what I'm going to tell you before I'm doing Last Take? You like this idea for a segment on the boxing show, Raj? Ready for this? I'm going to have fighters. I'm going to start beefs. Fighters are going to send in short videos calling out other top fighters just from their phones. I'll throw it right up there on the show.
Starting beef? What are you calling it? What are you calling it?
All right.
Oh, I like it.
We'll figure that out. Look, should Cam get another shot as a starter is the question. In his first 3 games as a Patriot, Cam Newton was 62 for 91. Now, I wasn't a math major, but that seems to me about 2/3 of his passes. That's 67%. 714 yards with a completion rate, of 68.1%. 2 TDs, 2 interceptions. And by the way, remember that shootout with the Seahawks? He looked like an MVP candidate to me. On the ground, he carried the ball 35 times for 149 yards, 4 touchdowns. New England was 2-1. Remember, only a goal line stand by Bobby Wagner, one of the best in the business, stopped them from being 3-0 with a win over Seattle. And they'd already beaten the Dolphins. And then they beat the Raiders. It's almost an undefeated stretch. After COVID, then he got COVID, right? And they lost to the Chiefs. And when he came back, he didn't look the same. Remember, they had to close down the facilities. They couldn't practice. But also, Cam clearly wasn't the same. Belichick had to go over and pat him on the back at one time. Remember that? Everyone was like, that's not like Belichick, because he knew the man was playing with a problem. Anyway, after COVID, he went on to throw for less than 100 yards 4 times. He finished the season with 2,657 yards, which is 24th in the league, 8 TDs, 33rd. That's not a starter, and only 32 starting jobs. 10 interceptions, tied for 18th in the league. A QBR of 47.4. That's 30th in the league. On the ground, he had 592 yards, 12 TDs, and fumbled 6 times. Do you understand, though? Those are subpar. Those are not starter numbers. However, it takes you a year to get back from a catastrophic injury, and then a year, many of them, including Cam's, and then usually a year to get back to where you were. So he's not supposed to be what he was yet. But on top of that, he had no offensive weapons. He had to learn a whole new system, new coach. The first time in his professional career, he wasn't on the Panthers. He had to follow Tom Brady, who was not nearly as good as he was this year, last year, given the weapons he had. And then he got COVID. So they couldn't practice with his new teammates. They couldn't practice preseason. They couldn't practice during the season. And then Cam was feeling the lingering effects of COVID, which I mentioned on the air several times. It seemed to me like something's off with Cam. I wonder if they're lingering COVID effects. And then Cam referenced it weeks later when asked about it and said, yeah, he didn't feel right. You could say I'm making excuses for Cam Newton. Bottom line is, even with all of that said, he went 7-9. And if not for that goal line stand by Bobby Wagner, and then the strip against the Bills, he'd have been 9-7. No. Did Cam prove he's a starter this year? No, he didn't. But he didn't disqualify himself as one either. To me, the jury is still out. And if I were a head coach and I needed a quarterback, I'd be thrilled to get Cam Newton. I think he's still a starter. I think the evidence suggests, my educated guess, is he's still a starter. Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. See you tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. Poof.
Today on ESPN Daily, everyone remembers the infamous Manti Te'o catfishing